Bonjour! Bienvenue à Jongleur de Notre Dame. Je m'appelle Ron. Why are you looking at me like that? You don't speak French? Parlez-vous français? Oh, sacre-bleu. Okay, I will do this program in English, but the program I'm going to do for you is a fairy tale called the Juggler de Notre Dame. Now, ask yourself, what's a jongleur? And I bet you would say, it's a juggler, they just do tricks. Well, in the old days, we had three jobs. We did tricks, but we also told stories, and we also sang songs. We also wore a funny hat sometimes. I got one. And I would like to start off the program for you with a nice little song. Here we go. I whip my hair all around, I whip my hair all around, I whip my hair all around, I whip... Oops, never mind. But my story is about a little boy named Jacques. Now, before I tell the story of an orphan boy named Jacques, let me tell you a game that the French people love to play, which is very similar to Simon Says. They call it Jacques D. What's that mean? Jack says. So if I say Jacques D, do it. If I don't say Jacques D, don't do it. Are you guys ready to play here in the library? I have two librarians watching. Here we go. Jacques D, raise your hands. Okay, put it back down. And you're both out. Let's try this again. Jacques D, touch your ear. Jacques D, touch your nose. Jacques D, touch your chin. Now if you touched your cheek like I did, you're wrong. This is your chin. But Jacques D is a fun game that the children play. But this child was an orphan, which meant he had no parents, and he was also hungry. So he had an idea. If I go down to the open-air market where people used to shop, before we had the Walmarts and the Targets, or Target, he thought if I would find a vegetable or fruit stand, maybe I can do tricks with the vegetables, and the owner will let me have something to eat. So without permission, Jacques reached in a stall and got an apple. Now in French this is called le pomme. An apple is le pomme. He also reached and grabbed an orange. Mr. Matt, how do you think they say orange in French? La orange. La orange. You have to say it that way. Okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. He also got a lemon. How do you think they say lemon? Le lemon. Close. It's citron. But French is a beautiful language. If you say la pomme de terre, which is an apple of the earth, that's how you say potato. And Jacques got the three fruits and started juggling them. Now, the owner was not paying attention, but Jacques did some tricks. He did it straight up and down. He did it the reverse way. He kicked it off his foot. He kicked it off his knee, off his elbow, off his head. He did it in a circle. He did it behind his back. He also learned to catch the apple on his head. He also learned to catch it on his neck. He did it what we call crisscross applesauce. And when the vendor noticed, he yelled out, "Little boy! What are you doing?" And Jacques looked at the owner and he said, "I thought if I juggled the fruit, I could gather more customers for you." And the owner looked up and saw a crowd had gathered. And they're like, "Do more, do more." So Jacques got a job. And every day, he would go to the fruit and vegetable stand and juggle for the crowd. And then the crowd would buy lots of fruits and vegetables. And he learned to juggle four like this. Would you like to see four go in a circle? Here we go. Oh, do it the other way? Okay. going to buy that? Okay. Jacques learned another toy. This is from Japan. It's called a kendama. There's 3 cups on the ball here. You go around the different cups. And you'll notice there's a hole in the ball. In Japan, this is called the dama. The stick is called the ken. And the harder trick is to catch the stick into the hole of the ball. Hang on. This trick is called the lighthouse. This one is called around the world. So that's a fun thing that you can play with called kendama, Kendama. But one day, Jacques was doing a show out in the countryside, and he decided to close the show with 5 balls. Now, 5 balls took me a year to learn. I was 35 when I learned it. My son said, I'm going to learn 5 balls just like you when he was 10. I said, I don't think so. It took me over a year. It took him 3 weeks. And the reason why is children learn things a lot faster than adults. And if you learn to juggle, your brain works on both sides. That's called crossing the midline. And that's a very good skill that helps us read better. By the way, if you want to learn to juggle, let me show you the easy way to learn. These are nylon scarves. When you throw them in the air, they act like a parachute. And if you can't afford these, just walk down the road, Dollar General, Walmart, I'm sure they're around you. Take some of these plastic grocery bags out of the environment, cut them in half, and they act the same way. So the pattern you want to learn is called a cascade. Put 2 in one hand, put 1 in the other, draw the letter X, and take turns. Always start with a hand holding 2. Criss, cross, apple, sauce. And that's the easy way to juggle. And then turn your hands over. The best place to practice is by your bed. And I learned when I rolled up socks. Don't throw baseballs or rocks in the house. And once you learn, it's like riding a bicycle or learning to swim. It's in your brain, and it's a skill that you can use. But Jacques had learned 5, and he got up, and this was supposed to be his big finale, in front of the crowd, and tried to juggle 5 balls. And something was wrong. It didn't feel right. And they all hit the ground. And you know what the crowd did? Boo! And they all laughed, and they didn't put any money in his hat. And Jacques had a hard time from that day on because he couldn't do 5 balls anymore. And he became poor, like when he was a child. He became older and was having a very hard time. In the wintertime, it was getting very cold, and he was wandering around the streets of Paris when he saw this beautiful church. The church is named Notre Dame. Now in French, that means our mother. And you may have read in the news or saw in the news, last year, this 850-year-old church burned to the ground. They are repairing it and rebuilding it now. They hope to have it built in about 5 more years. But back in the day, this was a very famous church, and Jacques just collapsed on the fronts of the steps and went to sleep. The monks found him, and they woke him up, and they realized that this was the little boy Jacques that had grown up to be the famous Jongleur, and said, come on in, we'll find something for you to do, and we will feed you. So Jacques lived in the sanctuary of Notre Dame. You may have heard that name again in another story called The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. And Jacques was able to live there, and he had a happy life. One day, he noticed during the holiday season a bunch of food and clothing that were being placed in front of a statue at the front of the sanctuary that was the Mother Mary holding a baby Jesus. Now, this statue looked very serious, so I want to see your most serious face. And he asked the monks, what are these gifts for? Why are they piling the food and the clothes there? They said, it is Christmas season, and we are going to give these clothes and this food to the poor. And Jacques, now that he was there and wasn't so hungry anymore, he wanted to give a gift, but he didn't have any money. They just took care of him and fed and clothed him. He didn't have anything to give. But then he remembered, I'm still a juggler. I'm going to give the only thing I have left, and that is my talent. So Jacques got the ingredients to build a seesaw. In the circus, this is called a rollabola. And he got his 3 juggling clubs. Now, clubs are harder to juggle because you have to flip them and catch them on the skinny end. So Jacques got the clubs, and you have to flip these and catch them on the skinny end. Let me warm these up. And his idea was to get on top of the rollabola, the seesaw, and juggle for the statue of the Mother Mary and baby Jesus. And he was doing the trick when the monks walked in and saw him and yelled out, Jacques! What do you think you're doing? And Jacques was like, I just wanted to give something. I didn't have any food or clothing that I could give. And the monks looked at Jacques, and then they looked up at the statue, and the statue had changed because now the statue was smiling. Now, Jacques had given the greatest gift that he could, and that was part of himself. And that story is called The Miracle of Notre Dame, or Our Lady. And that story has been told many times, and it's actually made it to a movie. It was actually made into an opera. And one of the best versions of the story was written a few years ago by an author named Tommy DePaula. Tommy left us this year. He passed away. But he had over 200 books to his credit. Not only did he write them, he illustrated them. And he won many awards. This book is called The Clown of God. Now, I'm going to warn you parents, this does not have the same happy ending of the story that I told you. It's a sad ending, and if your child is 2 or 3 years old, you may not want to read it to them just like Tommy wrote it. But it's a beautiful story. I highly encourage you to check it out. And I'm going to put this away. So, I am a modern day jongleur. I work in children's hospitals, and my name is Dr. Tiny, and I want to show you my nose. All a nose is a piece of sponge painted red, and I got this from Hobby Lobby, this feeding string. And this is a hat that a girl who was fighting cancer gave me. Kids who are fighting cancer take a medication called chemotherapy, and one of the side effects is their hair falls out, so they wear caps over their head a lot. And the thing that we use the most in the hospital are these. These are soap bubbles. And when I got hired to be a hospital clown, they said, you need to learn bubble tricks. I said, well, I don't know how to do bubble tricks. And they said, read the book. The book was by a man named Tom Noddy, and I learned from reading the book to make bubbles that are really cool. You have to have thick bubbles. And we put a little bit of sugar in the mix. They sell sugar at the drugstore called glycerin. It's liquid sugar. People put it in their hands to make them soft. But these bubbles are a little bit thicker. So we go in the hospital rooms, 2 clowns at a time. And we start with a regular bubble, and kids have seen those usually, but if we get a little bit of straw, we can do the bubbles named after my character, Tiny Bubbles. It's like being a bottle of Sprite. So let me put this away. and tell you that if you lick your forefinger and blow a medium-sized bubble, you can squeak a bubble. Ooh, I got juice on my hands. Let me point it back. And if you're very careful and grab it gently, you can catch a bubble. If you wear a cotton sleeve, you can bounce bubbles like a trampoline. That hit my arm. If it hits your arm, the hair will pop it, so you have to hit the sleeve and the bubble will bounce. Dr. Gizmo on our team holds the record, 52 bounces of a single bubble. I know because I was there. It would have been more, but that's when I popped this bubble. He broke my record. But my favorite bubble trick to do is called a mommy bubble. See the baby bubble inside? So you may say, why are clowns blowing bubbles in hospitals? The reason why is when children see needles headed their way, they're like, ah! Because they don't want to get stuck with the needle. But the nurses tell us that when children make the monster face and tight muscles, a needle hurts a lot more. But when they see bubbles, they're like, ah! And they have fun with the bubbles, and then the nurse can take the needle, and the kid's like, what was that? You're done. So laughter truly is the best medicine, and we use soap bubbles to help children get through a lot of scary procedures at the hospital. Now I'm going to take my nose and hat off and tell you the other thing that we use a lot is the power of music. Now, 7 years ago, the leader of our program, Dr. Vincenzo Tortorici, Dr. Pucci was his clown name, passed away. He was only 44. We still miss him to this day. He was our best musician. And when he passed, we all decided that we had to continue his memory, and in his honor, we all learned music. And Dr. Okidoki gave me my first ukulele. He said, it's time for you to learn this, Tiny. Now I said, I can't learn this. So he told me to read the book, and all you need to do is learn 4 chords. And if you learn 4 chords, you can play 1,000 songs. 2 of those chords only take 1 finger. If you put your finger on the bottom string right here, this is called a C chord. You put 1 finger up here on the top string, that's an A minor. You put 1 finger on the string right there, now I got 2 fingers down, that's an F. If you put 3 fingers in a triangle, that's a G. And I learned those 4 chords, and I started playing music in the hospital. And I want to tell you a story about a little girl that I met many years ago. Now, I normally can't talk about kids, but I can talk about this friend of mine because this story was published in a book called Beyond the Red Nose, which was written by a clown in Texas named Tiffany Riley. And we got permission to share this story because my friend Takota, T-A-K-O-T-A, kind of like the state with a T instead of a D, she was 2 years old and in a car accident that sadly took her mom. But her grandmother became her primary caretaker, and Takota was really injured bad. She had her skull fractured, and she could no longer walk, and she had to learn how to talk. And because of the brain damage, she doesn't speak a lot of words. She can be hard to understand, but she's come a long way since those years when she was first learning to use a wheelchair and how to talk. But she is a frequent flyer, and what that means is I see her a lot at the hospital because she has to come for procedures all the time. 2 years ago, I got an email saying, please go see Takota. She's in the hospital, supposed to be there for 2 days. And when I went up to ICU to see her, the nurse stopped me and said, where are you going, clown? And I said, I'm going to see my friend Takota. She said, no, you can't, because she's in a coma. Now, if you don't know what a coma is, that's a very deep sleep, and it can last for many weeks, months, and sometimes years before people come out of a coma. But I told the nurse, can I see her anyway, because I know the grandmother, and she said, okay. So I went in, and the grandmother gave me a hug. She said, will you play her favorite song? And I knew her favorite song. It only uses 2 of those chords that I learned earlier, and it's called How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? It's a C and a G. How much is that doggy in the window? The one with the waggly tail. Now, I don't know if Dakota could hear me, but her mom asked me to play the song, so I did. Now, here's the rest of the story. They ended up staying at the hospital 4 months, and she got out of the coma and started having the surgeries that they needed to do. And at the end of the summer, it was her last day before she got to go home. I got to visit again. And I went with Dr. Mimi, our current leader, and she also could play a few songs on the ukulele, so I played Doggy in the Window. Dr. Mimi played one of her songs. It's from Moana, I believe. And then we were getting ready to leave to say goodbye, and Dakota held up one finger and said, "One." And I looked at Grandma and she said, "Do you know one more song?" Now remember, I only really know 4 chords, and there's lots of songs that you can play with 4 chords. You can play, "In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight." Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb the room, but I couldn't remember that song, and I couldn't remember any other song. The only song that I could think of was by Justin Bieber. Now, ordinarily I would play Justin Bieber for a little girl, but it was all that I could remember. So I started singing, "Are we an island? Girl, you playing? We're just friends. What are you saying? That there's another light in my eyes. My first love broke my heart for the first time." Now my partner's looking at me like, "Really?" But guess what? Dakota knows how to say the word baby. And when I got to the chorus, she started singing with me word for word. Baby, 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 oh. Baby, 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 no. Now when I got to this part, when I was 13, I had my first love. Tell nobody compared to my baby, nobody gave me tweets, look, it ever come a bud. She didn't do that part. But she sang baby, baby, word for word. And after the song, her grandmother looked at me and she said, "How did you know Dakota's other favorite song?" I didn't. But that's one of the beautiful things about the hospital work. Things like that happen all the time. And I really am glad that I get to go and help children feel a little bit better in a scary place. Now, I'm going to put this away and show you my favorite prop. This is called a Chinese yo-yo. And in the hospital, I wrap it around my neck like this. And it becomes my bow tie. Now, I got this when I was 8 years old. My aunt, who was a chicken farmer, gave it to me. And the only instruction I had was throw it in the air and have fun. So I'm right-handed, so this is how I used to throw it, from right to left. And when I joined the Atlanta Jugglers, they're like, "Dude, why are you throwing your yo-yo backwards?" Well, look what happened to the spin. It's not spinning anymore. He said, "Didn't you read the book?" I'm like, "Another book I need to read?" And it's called the Chinese Yo-Yo book, or the Diablo book, by a guy named Todd Strong. And I read it and I found out that I had been throwing my yo-yo backwards for 27 years. I needed to turn it around as a right-hander and go from left to right. Now look what happens when I go that direction. The yo-yo's going downhill, it's going faster and faster. And I read in that book, if you want to do some cool tricks with Chinese yo-yo, once you get it spinning really fast, then you can make it climb the string. This is called the elevator, going up. So once I learned the right way to do this from reading a book, it opened up the world for me. I've got to do nearly 8,000 shows now. I've been in 32 states, and I really love doing my Chinese yo-yo. But let me show you some tricks that I learned. This first trick I want to show you is called walk the dog. This next trick is called walk the cat. Never mind. I can catch it on the stick, play ping pong. I can do a trick we call the trampoline. Boing, 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 boing. I can make it climb the ladder. This is called a double cat's cradle. I can go around the world to the dark side. This trick is called my umbrella. Ella, Ella, eh, eh, eh. This is the combination trick. Over the shoulder, through the coffee grinder, up to the cradle. This next trick I want to show you is a clock trick, because time flies when you're having fun. And now, I want to show you two yo-yos. Not that one. Come back here. This is a trick we call the Ferris wheel. So let me get the pink one going. And now we'll throw the green one in there. And make him do the Ferris wheel. Whoops, try that again. There we go. Catch it on the stick. And catch both of them on my knee. We can do a trapeze to the left, trapeze to the right. We can go between the arms. And the last trick we'll do is called the hyperloop. A lot of those tricks that you just saw me do, I can't do safely in the hospital. So I showed you earlier that I wear it like a bow tie, and when a child says, "What's that?" I take it off my neck, and this is the trick that I do. I tell them that I can tie an impossible knot. Now you have to remember, a lot of the kids in the hospital have been there for weeks, and they are weak. They're not very strong because cancer, some of the other problems that a child may face, can rob you of your strength. So I tell them that this knot is impossible to untie. And my clown partner grabs the yo-yo and pulls as hard as they can, and you see that it's all tangled up. Then I give it to the kid and they pull, and it comes right off. And they laugh, ha, 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 ha. I thought you said it wasn't possible. And I'm just like, ooh. But I got the child to smile, and I empowered the child with a trick that I learned a long time ago. Because just like the Jongleur de Notre Dame, I learned in life to try to find your gift, and once you find it, then give it away. And if we would all do that, the world would be a much better place. I hope you enjoyed the Jongleur de Notre Dame. I hope you enjoyed some of the tricks that I could show you. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful summer. I appreciate you letting me come to Hazelhurst. Thank you. Bye-bye. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.